Good day everyone, and also to our Prof. Villanueva. We are Team Makabayan, and I am starting this report with this Republic Act of 761 is an act providing for stronger veterans and special protection against child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination, providing penalties for its violation and for other purposes. People nowadays, it is hereby declared that it is the national policy to provide children with special protection from all form of abuse, neglect, cruel exploitation and discrimination, and other conditions that affect their development and mental health. Sanction their mission and implement programs for prevention and to lessen deterrence and crisis intervention in situation of child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination. If a parent, guardian, teacher, or a person with and also caring for a custody of the child cannot protect the children from abuse, yes, exploitation and discrimination as well, or if such actions are direct against the child. The state intervenes on behalf of the child, a legal guardian, teacher, or a person who cares for them individually. However, this abuse can destroy them not only physical but also mental. Here in the Philippines in 2010, it's more than millions of child is being abused. It is a national policy with many protections and act that can give to those people who are suffering on this. Act also to protect the rehabilitate children to risk from serious threat or situations that affect or destroy their survival and normal development as a person. In all actions relating to them, whether by public or private welfare agencies, court, administrative authorities, and legislative bodies, the best interests of the child are in accordance with the principles of the first child call set out in the Convention must come first. United Nations opinion on child's right as well. Every effort is made to promote the well-being of child and increase of chances of a useful and happy life. In the other hand, we as people need to take care little by little step to stop destroying violence in this world because they are survivor. We admire them. We have a human right, so don't ever make anyone silence your voice. Here in Article 2, Section 12 also state that recognizing sacredness of a family life and protect and strengthen the family as a basic autonomous social system. It is designed to protect the lives of mother and fetuses from conception. Our right is came from our own self. We are seen to be protected by our own family when we are born. When we just born, you identified as a human with right. But some point, sometimes we see many abandoned children by their own family, and therefore you are part of this broad society and you have the right. You have the right to start with your own ability to change something into reality and positivity that can be your basis, and you have to dedicate your passion, your heart, to not just an echo, but a voice. And this is something that we should learn to recognize the wealth and humanity of each individual. So here is Miss Christine Nidea to discuss about Article 3, Number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Tasico. In the Article 3 of Presidential Decree Number 603 of the Child and Youth Welfare Code, the rights of child defines all children shall be entitled to the rights herein set forth without distinction as to legitimacy or illegitimacy, sex, social status, religion, political antecedents, and the other factors. Every child is endowed with the dignity and worth of a human being from the moment of his conception, as generally accepted in medical parlance, and has therefore the right to be born well. PD number 603, otherwise known as the Child and Youth Welfare Code and issued in December 1974, legally defines special categories of youths, including youthful offenders, and directs the Ministry of Social Service and Development, MSSD, to provide comprehensive service to assist in youth development. Who are considered children? As stated in Republic Act 76110, Article 1, Section 3 of Definition of Terms stated that children refers to persons below 18 years old or those over but unable to fully take care of themselves or protect themselves from abuse, neglect, cruelty, exploitation, or discrimination because of a physical or mental disability. In Article 1, Section 2 of Republic Act 7610 stated the Declaration of State Policy and Principles. It is hereby declared to be the policy of the state to provide special protection to children from all forms of abuse, neglect, cruelty, exploitation, discrimination, and other conditions. Prejudicial their development, provide sanction for their commission, and carry out a program for prevention and deterrence of a crisis intervention in situation of child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination. To discuss the rationale of Republic Act 7610, here is Miss Jasmine Manlunas.
Thank you for the brief introduction, Miss Nidea. So for the next slide is the rationale of Republic Act 7610. Republic Act 7610 is an act providing for stronger deterrence and special protection against child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination, providing penalties for its violation and for other purposes. It is hereby declared to be the policy of the state to provide special protection to children from all forms of abuse, neglect, cruelty, exploitation, and discrimination, and other conditions, prejudicial their development, provide sanctions for their commission, and carry out a program for prevention and deterrence of, and crisis intervention in situations of child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination. The state shall intervene on behalf of the child when the parent or guardian, teacher, or person having care or custody of the child feels or is unable to protect the child against abuse, exploitation, and discrimination, or when such acts against the child are committed by the said parent, teacher, or person having care and custody of the same. About the offenses against children under the Republic Act 7610. The first one is the child prostitution and other sexual abuse. Children, whether male or female, who for money, profit, or any other consideration are due to the coercion or influence of any adult, syndicate, or group, indulge in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct, are deemed to be children exploited in prostitution and other sexual abuse. The penalty of reclusion temporal in its medium period to reclusion perpetua shall be imposed upon the following.
Thank you, Ms. Manlunas, for that information. And now, let's proceed to the attempt to commit child prostitution, which is also an offense against children under RA 7610. Here are some examples of it. When a person who is not a relative of a child is found alone with the said child inside the house or cubicle of a house, an inn, hotel, motel, pension house, or other similar establishments, vessel, vehicles, or any other hidden or secluded area under circumstances which would lead a reasonable person to believe that the child is about to be exploited in prostitution and other sexual abuse. Lastly, is when the person is receiving services from a child in a sauna parlor, massage clinic, health club, and other similar establishments. The victim, which I'm talking about, are children, or those young people, whether male or female, below 18 years of age, or those over but are unable to fully take care of themselves or protect themselves from abuse, neglect, cruelty, exploitation, or discrimination because of a physical or mental disability or condition. Child trafficking in attempt to commit child trafficking. Any person who shall engage in trading and dealing with children, the act of buying and selling of a child for money or for any other consideration suffer the penalty of reclusion temporal to reclusion perpetua. The penalty shall be imposed in its maximum period when the victim is under 12 years of age. For example, when a child travels alone to foreign country without valid reason and without clearance issued by the DSWD or written permit from the child's parents or legal guardian is considered child trafficking. Another is when a person engaged in the act of finding children among low-income family, hospitals, clinics, nurseries, or daycare centers who can be offered for the purpose of child trafficking, which we all know that is very common to our country, Philippines, and to the poor countries.
Thank you, Mr. Nuke. Child pornography is a form of child sexual exploitation. Federal law defines child pornography as any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor. Images of child pornography are also referred to as child sexual abuse images. Federal law prohibits the production, distribution, importation, reception, or possession of any image of child pornography. A violation of federal child pornography laws is a serious crime, and convicted offenders face fine, severe statutory penalty. While some child sexual abuse images depict children in great distress and the sexual abuse is self-evident, other images may depict children that appear complacent. However, just because a child appears complacent does not mean that sexual abuse did not occur. In most child pornography cases, the abuse is not a one-time event. It's rather ongoing victimization that progresses over months or years. It is common for producers of child pornography to groom victims or cultivate a relationship with the children and gradually sexualize the contact over time. The grooming process fosters a false sense of trust and authority over children in order to desensitize or break down a child's resistance to sexual abuse. Therefore, even if a child appears complacent in a particular image, it is important to remember that the abuse may have started years before that image was created.
Thank you, Ms. Tanada. Along with the other offenses, there are other acts of abuse that are present. One of them is by having a minor who is under the age of 12 years and below accompanying someone who is 10 years younger than the minor to any places that are public or private, hotel, motel, beer joint, discotheque, cabaret, pension house, sauna or massage parlor, beach and other tourist resort or similar places. Anyone who is seen doing such an act will be put behind bars. There are also other abuses concerning the street child and other children. Any person who shall use, coerce, force, or abuse children. Any person who shall use, coerce, force, or abuse to children to beg or use begging as means of living, let them act as conduit or middleman in drug trafficking or pushing, and conduct any illegal activities will be detained. Manipulating children in doing illegal or unlawful acts is proof of cruelty and inhumanity. By controlling them, the child's mind is also getting corrupted and the innocence of them is stripped off. In relation to this, corresponding law is present to put a stop on the maltreatment of children. Here is Miss Jil Ava Angeles in order to explain different abuses that can be inflicted to children.
Thank you, Ms. Jola. According to Article 1, Section 2 of Rules and Regulations on the Reporting and Investigation of Child Abuse Cases, defines the term child abuse as the infliction of physical or psychological injury, cruelty to, or neglect, sexual abuse or exploitation of a child. In turn, the same section defines physical injury as those that include but are not limited to lacerations, fractured bones, burns, internal injuries, severe injury, or serious bodily harm suffered by a child. As stated in Article 6, Section 10, entitled as the other acts of neglect, abuse, cruelty, or exploitation and other conditions prejudicial to the child's development, that any person who shall commit any other acts of child abuse, cruelty, or exploitation, or to be responsible for the conditions of prejudicial to the child's development, including those covered by Article 59 of Presidential Decree Number 603, as amended but not covered by the revised Penal Code, as amended, shall suffer the penalty of prison mayor in its minimum period. It shall be the policy of the state to protect and rehabilitate children gravely threatened or endangered by circumstances which will affect their survival and normal development and over which they have no control. To discuss to you the other acts of abuse, here is Mr. Del Rosario.
Thank you, Ms. Angeles. Article 8, Working Children, Section 15, or duty of employer, prescribe that every employer shall comply with the duties provided for in Article 108 and 109. This article is from Presidential Decree of number 603. Under this Article 108 of Presidential Decree, or duty of employer to submit report, it prescribes that the employer shall submit to the Department of Labor a report of all children employed by him. A separate report shall be made of all such children who are found to be handicapped after medical examination. The Secretary of Labor shall refer such handicapped children to the proper government or private agency for vocational guidance, physical and vocational rehabilitation, and placement in employment. And under the Act of 109, a Presidential Decree, or Register of Children, every employer in any commercial, industrial, or agricultural establishment or enterprise shall keep four things. A register of all children employed by him, indicating the dates of their birth. Number 2, a separate file for the written consent to their employment given by their parents or guardians. Number 3, a separate file for their educational and medical certificates. And the last thing that shall need to be kept is a separate file for a special work permits issued by the Secretary of Labor in accordance with existing laws. That's the end of section 15. Now let's move on to the next section, which is section 15, or about the penalties. Section 15 prescribes that any person who shall violate any provision of this article shall suffer the penalties of fine of not less than 1,000, but not more than 10,000 pesos, or imprisonment of not less than 3 months, but not more than 3 years. Or both at the discretion of the court, provided that in case of repeated violation of the provisions of this article, the offender's license to operate shall be revoked. That's the end of my turn. Now, for the next sections, which are sections 17 to 19, will be tackled by Ms. Gesmundo.
Thank you, Mr. Del Rosario. Now let's proceed to the next slide, which is duty of government workers to report. It says here, it shall be the duty of all teachers and administrators in public schools, probation officers, government lawyers, law enforcement officers, barangay officials, corrections officers, and other government officials, and employees whose work involves dealing with children to report all incidents of possible child abuse to the department. We all know that violence against children is widespread and extremely damaging. What more if violence is hidden within the private realm of the family, or within the confines of schools, prisons, care homes, and other institutions? That explains why the government workers' duty is to prevent such harms. So who may file a complaint? When entering to the police blotter, the complaint may be filed by the people listed in the presentation. First and foremost is the offended party, which will be the child victim, including the parents or legal guardian of the victim. Second is the ascendant or collateral relative within third degree of consanguinity. That refers to the grandparents or relative of the child victim up to a first cousin. Third is the barangay chairman and barangay officials, including one of a group of 3 or more persons who have personal knowledge of the abuse. Fourth is the officer, social worker, or representative of a licensed child caring institution. These people are required by law to report child abuse cases. The people mentioned may be charged criminally if they do not report a child abuse case. To conclude, the Republic Act 761, Special Protection of Children Against Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act, we, Team Makabayan, hope that you understand when the rights begin, who are considered children, the rationale of RA 7610, all offenses against children under RA 7610, other acts of abuse, which are physical and psychological or emotional abuse. We have also discussed the meaning of neglect and reporting, the duty of government workers to report, and the people who may file a complaint. That is all from Team Makabayan. Let us all help prevent child abuse. Thank you and God bless.